So what does it mean? Let's bring in Peter MacKay, former federal Conservative cabinet minister. Nowadays, he is a partner with the Baker McKenzie law firm in Toronto, and that's where he's joining us from right now. Always good to have you on, Mr. MacKay. Your thoughts on this move?
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I've seen this story before, unfortunately, and it was alluded to in the run-up. And when Conservatives are divided, it actually upsets the Democratic choice in some ways by having a fringe or a break-off party like this. It hands the power essentially to the Liberal Party. And so I don't think this is necessarily a good move. And there's been a lot of commentary about Max personally. I'm not going to attack Max. I think he may be doing this with the best intention. But, you know, giving him the benefit of the doubt, it still does not bode well for the Conservative movement to have this type of division at this particular time, just over a year away from an election.
What kind of support do you think that he has on this?
Very difficult to say. These are early days for this nascent party. He's laid out a platform, so to speak, these positions that he has long held, to be fair, but his other positions on lower taxes and being pro-free trade, being a party of the rule of law, this is all very much within that big tent Conservative movement. And my preference, and others I think, would have been that Max continue to speak out, as he is wont to do, on certain issues, but to do so within the Conservative fold and to present himself as a Conservative in the next election, as opposed to hiving off even what a relatively small amount of support could do is result in a lot of seats that might otherwise be Conservative going back to the Liberal Party.
We have seen these waves of populism in many countries around the world. You're familiar, in the United States and Europe and elsewhere. And I wonder whether there's a clue in the title of this party, the name of it, the People's Party of Canada. Do you think what Maxime Bernier is trying to do is bring that sort of populism to our country in a way that Conservatives, in his mind anyway, have not been able to do?
Well, he hints at that, but then disclaims that it may, in fact, be a populist movement. But I think the more important word here is movement. Is there actually an appetite and an uprising happening? I don't see it. I think there are maybe some small pockets, libertarians, some who like his particular idea around pushing back against extreme multiculturalism, as he's described it, or even the more narrow issue of supply management, where he has been a vocal opponent. And we know where that is headed with respect to NAFTA. But at the end of the day, I think what it does is it dilutes the Conservative message in a way that is harmful, that we have seen before in the breakaway of the Reform and then the Bloc Québécois. And it did result in our view, as Conservatives, as a dysfunctional process that elected Liberals for 13 years. And had it not been for the Gomery inquiry and some of the mismanagement, we might very well never have been in a position where we had to literally get our act together and unify the Conservative movement. My hopes is that perhaps that could still happen.
Yeah, and I wonder how concerned you think Andrew Scheer is today watching this unfold. And again, I appreciate, we're far away. We don't really know how much traction this party is going to have. But you were saying that even taking a few percentage points here and there in different ridings could tip those ridings to the Liberals.
In a close election, that is very much possible. And while I think Andrew is concerned and I believe made legitimate efforts to try to reach out to Max and to try to prevent this from happening, he has to move on. And that's what I saw happening at the Conservative convention in Halifax just a few weeks ago. The story of Max Bernier literally came and went in a matter of 24 hours. It was like a weather system that blew over the convention, and nobody was talking about it. They were talking about policy, getting ready for an election, and it galvanized support around Andrew Scheer as leader of the Conservative Party.
In terms of him as a leader, we've been talking to commentators throughout the day who have said, he does have a certain kind of charisma, or there's a certain eccentricity to him that might resonate with some voters who are tired of same old, same old. There may be, in fact, kind of a Jean Chrétien folksiness about him. Is that overrated in your mind?
Yes, it is a little bit. I know Max, and I've seen him, and he certainly has his eccentricities and his appeal to some. But look, leaving your party and doing so in such an unceremonious and ungracious way and trashing it as you're going out the door, the party that 5 minutes ago you wanted to lead, doesn't look good on him or people who might follow him. And I haven't seen a lot of groundswell of support, if I can put it that way. And secondly, I said at the outset, we've seen this before. We've also seen people who've left the party and tried to frame it as the party has left them. That doesn't wash in this particular instance. Max's views were tolerated, and others who hold those views are still part of the conservative movement. So I don't think he has the charisma or the following that would be necessary to really challenge for power, let alone lead a movement that is going to supplant or in any way really substantially change the political landscape in Canada.
We really appreciate your insights as always. Thank you so much for this today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Peter MacKay joining us from Toronto.